professor, physician, epidemiologist. I am Dr. Sri Banerjee.
I'm Dr. Sri Banerjee, core faculty for the College of Health Sciences and Public Policy at Walden University. And in this video, I'm going to go over two of my skills, my basic skills that I have, and that is mapping and social determinants of health. So what I want to give you here is some basic tips to follow so that you can create some maps informing domains in the social determinants of health and even principles of social epidemiology. So I'm going to fuse some of these expertise together to present the contents of this video. So let's get started here. I have here for you created, and you can see here I've not done this just in one day, in one sitting. I've done this gradually. Some of these actually correspond to specific current events that were occurring during the time that I created the map. So this is kind of a chronicle. It's interesting to look at because it's a chronicle. The date modified shows you when the maps were generated. So now to talking a little bit about the types of maps that can be made using social principles. So this is using something called county health rankings, and there's information about there's roughly around 3,000, 3,500 counties in the United States. And this goes into every single county. And the idea was that the snapshot of a county will give you a specific community level understanding of what is going on. So thinking about from a patient care perspective, when you go into a specific community and you're seeing patients, you need to be aware of the situation that is going on within their lives. And of course, family, immediate neighbors, things like that play a role in the social context as well. But it's also important to know, like within the community, for instance, what is the education level? um, when we were looking at the pandemic and thinking about how the cases are evolving, and then later on when the vaccinations came about, and then people were urged to vaccinate, this had a lot to do with health literacy. Um, it was difficult to conceptualize the idea of the virus, and this is something I've talked about previously with leadership explaining this early on about the pandemic. Is that how does something so microscopic cause disease? And so this was another conversation I had about uh, another colleague about talking about converting molecules to then how that plays a role in the community, to the individual, to the community. So this is going into talking about and looking at on a geospatial level some of these clinical some of these clinical aspects that you may encounter within patient visits. So I'm trying to bring all of these facets together in one map here. Um, and so this is specifically looking at the case numbers, and this is not current as of this recording. This is from a couple of weeks ago. But as you can see, a number of lead epidemiologists are saying around that the COVID-19 pandemic, there are still remnants of it, and there's pockets of it, and that is what is important to look at. And then also kind of understanding that is education, and does education level have something to do with the cases still lingering in certain hotspots of the country. So if you look in Boston and more highly populated areas would make sense, but then if you look into the rural communities, when there's higher cases and case rates, and they are corresponding to education level, then you start to make associations and try to look further into understanding why education level might lead to higher cases. And I just went over a couple of them, and not understanding the virus, and then not understanding how the vaccine protects against the virus. And then the other part is the misinformation. Um, so all these are social aspects. And what you can do is, on your own time, click on this map. I'm gonna have this on the YouTube channel, and then explore a place that you may be interested in. Maybe you've lived there, and if not, maybe you've heard of people that are from there. Maybe maybe even your favorite basketball team is from that place. But just try to look for different places, and this. What I've created is life expectancy by race and ethnicity. Explore these. Even that will provide you, going back to the domains of the social determinants of health, um, that will really provide you a snapshot of what is going on. And then if you take that back into the Healthy People 2030, and look at all the objectives there, the 355 objectives, and look at what community level intervention, for instance, education. There's a number of interventions that addresses education. So what community level intervention might actually inform some of and address some of the social determinants? That's the next question that you want to ask yourself. And so this can comprise a nice exercise um, sort of piece, because you can take a patient encounter, and then understand on a community level how these factors interact and impact the patient, whether it's impacting transportation, housing, food insecurity, all of these areas, and then extrapolating that to a community potentially within the United States that has similar characteristics. So I think it's important to not only understand the community context that you may be examining within your area, but also matching that up and then extrapolating that to a potential community within the United States and comparing that. And this could make for a nice final product, which you can then communicate in any way that you can. So this can make for pieces, and I do this all the time. In order to raise awareness, and do my due diligence in educating the community, I'll post things on LinkedIn. So let me. So this is an example. I've actually spent a lot of time kind of talking through this, and giving you some cases here. But let me walk you through now. Let me do a demonstration here, and walk you through step by step how you can create your first social map. So in this segment of the video, I'm going to go over how to create a map from scratch. So let's get started here. So let me go ahead, and so this is actually the classic map viewer. Let me open the new map viewer. It's a bit more chic, um, if you ask me. But then there's places where you can kind of add a layer. So you go into the layer. Well, let's actually start with a new map. So let's start in the classic map viewer, and so go from there. So here is the new map. Click on this. You can either look at a recent map, and I promised I'm going to go over these in the third part of this video. I am going to go over some other maps, but let's do a demonstration and make a new map here. So create new map. So you can choose to remain in the classic view, which has slightly more features than if you go into the new map viewer. So let's go into the new map viewer. But the interface here is different, and in some ways flows a bit more cohesively here. So right here on the left-hand side, you can add a layer, and so that's the second. So the first one is adding, and this one is good for if you have outside data. I do that sometimes, where I collect primary data on the field. And then when there was COVID, and when we were collecting data for anxiety pertaining to COVID, we took data points from the field and actually mapped it. And I have an example of that in my video library. But here is so that's the add feature. But let's look at the layers feature. I'm going to add layer, and then instead of my content, do the living atlas. And then under Living Atlas, you can do county health rankings. And this is one by Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and various universities coming together to generate this. So go ahead and add this. I usually like to create the base map, put a nice black base map, a dark gray canvas. That's one of my favorites. But you can kind of play around with some of the other ones and take a look. Like for instance, imagery. This is actually remote sensed images that are put together and updated quite frequently. This is kind of a hybrid. So you can kind of see which one works best for your functionality. One about the oceans, National Geographic style map. You can have fun with some of them. You got a community map here, and I've used that before. Um, so there's quite a few options, but go ahead and select um, dark gray canvas for our sake here. And then taking a look at what you want to map to begin with. And you have a whole slew of options that you can be mapping. So you can take a look here, and effects, um, and so the first thing that we need to do, and let me move my screen so that I can see here better and it's not crowded. Let's move from sketch to county. So that's the first step on the right hand side. Then what you want to do is change this around to styles, and then select a style that is suitable and makes sense. I like the colors and amounts, but before you even do that, try to select the field that you're going to be interested in mapping. And this is where your social determinant skills, or social mapping skills come into play. So you select a field, and this will turn into a flat color. And then some say that smoking in itself is a is a social determinant context, and more so than a result of human behavior, due to the fact that it's so much influenced by socioeconomic status, smoking status, that the two should be studied in conjunction with each other. Um, this may not make as much sense now, but understanding that lower socioeconomic status has way higher rates of smoking, and studying composite indices may be of use. Um, so there's a number of variables you can take a look at. Percent 65 and older, adult obesity, adult smoking, and then ethnicity groups, and then below 18 years of age, and then children eligible for free or reduced price lunch, children in poverty. So there's quite a few, and what's good to note also is that it's broken down by ethnicity. So this allows for better understanding of not only what is going on within the majority of the population, but also subgroup analysis. And this is a major part of not I would say not only social determinants, but social epidemiology, because now we're not only asking and looking at questions about geography, but fine tuning that to geography and ethnicity. So intersectionality, the concept of intersectionality within diversity, inclusivity, and inclusivity and equity is of utmost importance. Um, so now, just going through some of these, and I think I think we can kind of start with something that is um, very much a reflection of socioeconomic status, and um, not a difficult concept to be thinking about, but a little bit more advanced than just thinking of socioeconomic status. And I'm gonna get to what I mean. So just I'm just gonna introduce this variable and then explain to you after I'm done with the map. Income inequality ratio of income at 80th percentile to 20th percentile. That is what this is. And then when you're looking at um, what else to, I mean, you can change the color to what you like. Blue is kind of the default, but there's style options. You can change the color to uh, for this demonstration. I'll change it to, let's say, blue. It gives you a nice color. Something else I want to point out before we move on to something else is that any measure, like for instance the ratio, this provides you with a nice histogram of that. It's an important point for any beginning data analyst is the fact that the law of averages. So averages don't depict everything going on within the population. Very important point. Something that I think a lot of upper leadership and everyone is are also seeing. And so it's important to take a look at kind of upper and lower ranges of what is going on. And so if you add one standard deviation, you get 5.27. And then one standard deviation below is 3.73. So this is kind of the histogram. Again, a quick little tidbits that you can take a look at and get a sense of where everybody is. So a lot of what this tells me, basically, why do I need to look at this histogram? What does this tell me? This tells me that there's quite a bit of distribution, wide distribution of income inequality. So if it was a kind of a long and narrow sort of distribution, then that would tell me that it's just all the same. Inequality is all the same throughout the country. I don't need this map. That's what that would tell me. But the fact that I'm seeing quite a bit of distribution here tells me that I do need to look at this map. that I need to go into each of the locations and take a look at the social conditions that are so apparent there. So now that I talked about the style, let's go into done. Let's click done. Let's and then let's now do the fun part of actually exploring this map a little bit, and taking a look at what is going on. So first things first, you always look at when you're looking at a map. You always look at not only the map, but pay attention to the legend, what is going on. I already went over the histogram. I already made the determination that I need to look at this map because that histogram did not have have a long peak. So now um, my focus is um, looking at this map and looking for patterns. Um, Now, if you've learned about income inequality, one thing that is important to note is that in certain countries and certain locations, when you have a big gap between um, the biggest earners at the top and people that don't earn as much, when there's a big gap, then there are more inequities. So, and a lot of our leaders, Bernie Sanders has talked about this, about closing that gap. And of course, there's debates on minimum wage, raising minimum wage, and equaling that. So when the Gini coefficient, that is from 0 to 1, higher the number, the more inequality there is. But this is looking at the actual ratio between the 80th percentile, people earning at the 80th percentile to 20th percentile. So the bigger that gap, the bigger that number, the more that inequality. And this is where the power of this map lies. So you can go in and kind of zoom in on different counties and take a look at the distribution of some of the bluer counties and see if there's life expectancy differences. And as we can see in Butts County, the life expectancy is 74.3. So the other thing you can look at is just overall, how is it doing in terms of health outcomes? I mean, is it doing well? When you're saying 106 out of 159, that's telling me that it's not a county that's doing well. And so the income inequality, in fact, is having real consequences within the community. And this is looking specifically at social determinants of health, because this is giving me um, the income inequality, which is one of the five domains, economic stability, of course, under that. So this is looking at one such domain, zooming in on it, and looking at space level information of what are the potential associations between income inequality, life expectancy, and health outcomes, and even health factors. Um, so, do you see how at the end, not only now do you know how to make this map, but just bring it all together? Bring it all together. You see the patient, you match them to the community conditions, you match it to another community that you are looking at within the United States, and then you provide the whole social picture through all of the data that you have collected, your social history data that you have collected from the patient, and then applying it to the community context and the population level. But on a very much more specialized, granular way than just applying social determinants of health. So as you can see, kind of to propel this, we have to use Healthy People 2030 to understand what specific interventions now can be created at the local level to help the homeless individual to get better care, to get to the clinic, and then within the community, to uplift the community, and from uplifting the community, then uplifting the patient. And this is how we can take mapping, take social determinants of health, take clinical sciences, and all and fuse it and merge it together. I hope this example and illustration helps to better guide you in your work, whether it's clinical practice or research. Thank you for listening.